So thank you all so much for coming. It's really exciting to see so many people from so many different disciplines and backgrounds and so many different interests in the same space. And I think one of the things that we thought when the Young Men's Network kind of started, when we came together, all the meetings were really invigorating and exciting and energizing. And I think one thing that really struck us, and has really struck me personally, is that there's a lot of amazing work already kind of going on out there in different places with different peoples and different settings. And actually part of today is just about bringing as much of that work together into the same space so we can kind of connect and share and chat about the work. So with that in mind, this is the Engaging Young Men and Boys kind of strand. There's sort of 3 strands today. There's this one, and then we've obviously got mental mental health and gender-based violence, or involving masculinities upstairs. And coming off the record for anyone that isn't aware, is a young person's mental health charity. My sort of entry into this field was I worked with Courtney, who's at the back there from Empire Fighting Chance, and we ran a project called Call a Man together, which was a collaborative project between Off the Record and Empire for a few years, which is a pilot project, which we will be doing a session on later if anyone's interested in coming and finding out a little bit more about that. And that was a real learning curve for me in lots and lots of ways. And I think the thing with not just young men, but men in general, in talking about mental health, I think obviously the first barrier, again, I don't want to speak on behalf of anyone, but feels like the first challenge is getting us through the door and like getting us in the room, because I think it's probably safe to say that it's pretty well known that typical mental health interventions and offers generally do not appeal to us as a gender. So with that in mind, we've got 3 wicked projects, really, really interesting stuff that's going on to challenge some of those kind of engagement barriers, and they are doing some really, really great work. So I will pass, we'll do 10 to 15 minutes each presentation, and then we'll just open up to the floor for questions and kind of a general chat. So we should start. Are you okay to go first? Yeah.
Right, thank you ever so much for joining us this morning. That's all right, yeah. Here we go. My name is Furness. I'm a lecturer at SGS College and UCYs. I'm also the co-founder of Intersport. This was a project that we created back in October 2021. The idea of the project was to give opportunities for ex-offenders and those recovering from addiction, opportunities into sport, and to reintegrate them back into education. Okay. I'd like to also invite, I've got 2 far better looking and 2 far more interesting young men with me, and they've both been students with us on the course, and I think actually if they could give you a better insight of their lived experience in prison and since being on the course as well. So can I invite up Dayton Powell and Carl Lawrence? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you a bit of an insight as to what the purpose of the course was, and then we're going to have a bit of a Q&A with these 2 gentlemen as well. I'll try not to talk for as long because they are far more interesting than I am. So essentially the project was designed to give opportunities to ex-offenders, to recovering addicts, and to get them reintegrated into an education setting. So those of you who know SGS College and UCYs, we're pretty much a further education provision that exists in Filton, and then we've got a university side as well. Okay. In January 21, we sat down and we drew up plans to create this provision and to give these guys opportunities into things that they might not have known would exist before. So by the end of the 18 months, as it kind of says on the board, they'll come away with 4 qualifications with an opportunity to go away as a level 3 qualified personal trainer. So, he looks all right then. We were quite fortunate, and I think in life you get lucky sometimes. And when we started this cohort, you know, we as college lecturers, we're not quite used to working with people coming in and out of prison. We're used to working with 35 kids between 16 and 19. They're going to muck about in the class. They're not really sure why they're at college, but they turn up anyway. So we were treading into kind of water that we weren't entirely sure what it was going to look like, but we got really lucky. And out stepped these first 7 gentlemen, our first cohort. We spent 3 months working with them, kind of embedding them through our education and through the qualifications. And then we got quite lucky. The lovely Megan, who's filming me now, she sent an email to the BBC, and luckily enough they got back to us. And they took a look at the project that we were doing. And we were in a fantastic place. We were kind of 4 months deep. The boys were embedding themselves really, really well into the culture, and they were actually understanding more parts of the body. They were understanding why, the mechanics of how they got big, how they were getting big, and it was a really, really exciting project. The reason we did this, as I'll kind of go into as this kind of refreshes, we recognised the constraints for a lot of men leaving prison. We also recognised that there was a lot of unlocked potential with a lot of these young men who didn't quite realise actually what they wanted to do. We also wanted to kind of provide opportunities for them to go and do something that we thought they'd thrive in. So when we were going into these prisons and we were having conversations with the men and the officers, and they were talking about kind of this prison being this safe haven, you know, no fights in prison, no fights in the gym, and we recognised this to be something that could probably unlock a lot of opportunities for these boys. When we were having conversations with these offenders, they didn't quite know the mechanics of how they were getting big, but actually they were really innovative with their workouts. I remember you were telling me about, I think it was in the middle of lockdown, you got a broom, you got two litre bottles of milk on each side of the broom, and you started doing bicep curls. Genius, absolute genius. So what we started to understand was that actually these guys, they had all this time when they were kind of banged up, that they could understand or they could create various cell workouts, various methods. And the two guys that I've got on the screen are Wayne and Colton. They were banged up in HMP Portland for about 2 years. And they walked into the course on the first day and they looked at each other and goes, "Right, Wayne, right, Colts, yeah, you did, same thing, yeah." No worries, mate, yeah. And suddenly they was kind of embedded with us, and it was fantastic to see their development. And now Wayne talked about Colton coming in, and he called him a skinny shit when he first walked into prison, and he came out kind of 5 kilograms heavier, and they worked together in prison, and then they came and worked together with us as well, and that was really powerful for us actually. And I talk a lot about unlocking unrecognised potential. One little story that I want to go to, we was talking with a lad who's no longer with us anymore, he's gone off to other things, and we were in the gym, and one of the lads wanted to weigh himself, so he got on his scales and he weighed himself, and he goes, 85 kg, he was like, "What's that, I only do stone?" And Gay said, "I was like 12.5 stone, mate." "How do you know that?" And he goes, "Just know." So I got on the weights, I weighed myself, 65 kg, went a great week. And he goes, "Yeah, you're about 10 stone off." I said, "How do you know that?" And he goes, "Well, I've got a lot of experience with scales." And I said, "Oh wow, that's brilliant." So what we learned from that is actually, we didn't really need to stigmatise these kind of non-violent crimes, but actually take advantage of that. Because what this lad had done is he had almost an empire, and he was quite high up in this empire. I don't know if any of you've seen The Wire, and you see kind of Stringer and Stringer Bell and what's it called? Avon, that's it, yeah, Stringer and Avon, and they got this empire and they treat it like a business. And it was really inspirational, and he would talk about it, and obviously we thought actually if we can gauge that feeling and we can manifest that into something that has purpose and that is legal, we can really take advantage of some brains here. And that's when we talk about finding meaningful and purposeful careers for these offenders. So we recognised that a lot of the work that they were doing in the gym and a lot of the education was actually really good, but they were coming out and they didn't really have that opportunity. So that's where we wanted to create this. Some special moments. I'm just going to cite this one. This is Dayton doing a PT session with one of our other lecturers, Brody. So what we did is we got all of our lecturers from our FE provision, we put them in the gym, we teamed them up with one of our students each, and they went and did a personal training session. She was exhausted, but I think that photo epitomises perfectly everything that we wanted. You know, the energy, the laughter, the enthusiasm, and this personifies Dayton perfectly. And that was really special for us, actually watching them go around the gym and put on this incredible session. So that's really sticks out as one of the better moments for us. So, a couple of last things, what we found, so the power of becoming a student again for the first time. So when these guys actually re-enter college, they put their lanyard on, they walk around. I think we had 7 in one cohort and maybe 9 in the other cohort, and they are the most well-behaved students we've ever had in our time, which is mad to think. They sit there, their phones are in their pockets, they stare at you, they start taking down the notes. It's brilliant, you know, and if I could get that with my 35 other FE students, that would be fantastic. So watching them was really inspiring, and how they would take on their own learning journey. And then the gym classroom balance is a really powerful tool for creating a positive culture. So it's really easy to see the gym, especially when you go into prison, as right, who can go and lift the most? Who's going to be the biggest? But that's not what this was, and we really challenged that. But actually, when these guys went in, it wasn't right, how much can you lift? Oh, well, I could do this. It weren't that at all. And what we found is that the bigger guys would often work with the smaller guys, and they would try and, you know, set their own targets, set their own goals. Well, you come and wait with me. Oh, yeah, can you spot me? And that was really inspirational for us. It wasn't about, right, how big can you be? It was different. So we challenged that norm, and I think that's kind of personified throughout a lot of what we were trying to kind of embed within our practice as well. And the last thing for me, so last year's achievements, and the one big one for me, 25 years spent in prison between the group over the past 30 years, and in the last 12 months, not a day was spent in prison. So that was massive to us. And you can kind of read through some of the achievements, and we'll talk about some of the remarkable things that these two are definitely doing in a second. But this is Jason. He was in the BBC doc and it didn't quite play. Jason was, I think he was 44. I thought he was 38 for a few years, but he was actually 44. Jason spoke in the BBC documentary about wanting to get a degree at one point, and he loved his coaching, and he came from various projects. You'll know him as well. He came from other projects, and he came to us with his gorgeous face, brilliant, willing to learn, and he's now doing a foundation degree in sports coaching up in Hull University, which was massive to us. So yeah, and at 44 it kind of shows that it's never over, so we're massively proud of Jason, as well as these young men. So I'm going to go straight over to Dayton. So Dayton, firstly, if you can introduce yourself and just give a bit of a spiel about kind of your lived experience since leaving prison and what you're up to at the moment.
Hello everybody, my name is Darren Powell. I'm in a bit of a unique situation when it comes to talking about leaving prison. I haven't actually been to prison in over 10 years, so, you know, large up to me, everybody. Whilst doing some youth work, or what I classed as youth work, trying to help some kids get into the music scene and away from street crime, I ended up getting arrested, which happened to be a misunderstanding with the police, but still left me with 2 years probation. So this is how I ended up into sport, and yeah, really amazing course. I also, since leaving prison, I've gained a degree in philosophy and psychological studies, and I'm on my second degree with musical production and music business at the moment at the University in Bristol.
Fantastic. So yeah, and again, he'll be modest about it, but to come out with 2 degrees and still be, you know, striving. He's with us 2-3 times a week. He's now mentoring on our younger cohorts as well, who are just coming in. You talk about going off and doing your degrees in philosophy, music, technology. What's been your biggest motivator since almost leaving?
Since leaving prison, my biggest motivator is obviously not wanting to go back to prison. I've spent half my life in prison. I've been there 17 times. I moved to Bristol. I'm originally from Birmingham, so I moved to Bristol to get away from my old lifestyle and not have the same opportunities there for me that I had before. So yeah, I guess that's been my biggest motivator, staying away from that and obviously my family.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Okay, again, same thing, Kyle, just introduce yourself and talk about your life over the past 18 months. I'm just going to get nice photos up and you can talk.
Yeah, so hello everyone, my name's Kyle, obviously born and bred in Bristol. Definitely over the last, I'd say 2 years have been probably the worst sort of 2 years of my life really, but meeting Arthur and a few other positive people, they were able to kind of guide me the right way and show me positive ways, I'd say, to deal with stress. So instead of taking drugs, smoking cigarettes and going out and talking about problems at the pub and maybe trying to make some money on the side, I kind of started trying to look after my body and kind of finding out how my mind works in a sense of how I deal with things. So at first it was kind of doing a post-sentence probation, community service, trying to find out how or what it is that I did, kind of accepting some of the things that I did, and then I guess really moving on from there, you know. But I managed to get my own place. I managed to like really come to terms with what I'd done, and then I found employment shortly after I got my place, like a 1-bedroom flat, and now I've obviously come to do my level 3 as well. So yeah, it's been really, I guess, since leaving prison and really accepting it, I've really turned over a new leaf.
And just to finish on Kyle as well, he's actually been nominated for an AOC Student of the Year. So this is a nationally recognised award recognised by all further education courses. So we wish him best luck on that one and hopefully he wins. So just to finish, this is kind of us moving forward. So this is where the middle one is where we started. This was our awards, and this is kind of where we're at. So we have doubled, which is fantastic. We'd like to see the project rolled out kind of nationwide in universities and colleges, and that's kind of something that we're looking towards. But at the moment, it's just about seeing how many opportunities we can create for these young men and keep being inspired. I think we've been really lucky to be a part of these guys' lives, and I hope it's the same for them as well. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I hope it's been good.
That was amazing to listen to. Jacob, do you want to go next?
Hi everyone, I'm Jacob Kelly. So I thought I'll just do a little introduction about me first. So I'm a mental health support worker, and then outside of work, I'm a mental health campaigner around mental health and ADHD. So my lived experience is I struggled with postnatal depression after my son was born, and I was diagnosed with ADHD at about 13, so I've been in the ADHD scene for about 20 years now. So yeah, I work for an early intervention and psychosis team, and traditionally in secondary mental health services, they run groups for their little caseload, and that's it. So we had a little football group, and we would get about 3 to 4 people come, and it was okay, but it wasn't the sort of, it didn't look and feel how I wanted it to feel like. I wanted it to feel like friends playing football. So I managed to persuade my manager, look, let's try something different, let's get some funding, and we set up this football group that was open to anyone in and out of mental health services. So at that time when we set up, there was nothing in Bristol for people that were struggling with their mental health, where they wanted to play football in a sort of social environment. There was groups where either you had to have friends to play five-a-side, or you had to have those social connections, but there wasn't anything set up. So we set up this group. This is some of the members here. At first we did a little partnership with Bristol Rovers, but then we wanted to sort of create our own sort of club feel. So we sort of moved away from them. And here's just some football, photos of the football. I think what makes the group different to sort of other mental health groups that have run, we want it to really feel like friends playing football. So we have sort of 2 rules, and one is like no slide tackling because the pitch is plastic, so you'll get burnt. And the second one is no negativity and no sort of shouting. So it's all about positivity. We always say you can kick the ball on the roof and no one's going to care. And for a lot of our clients and players that come, they'll come not having no social networks or social relationships. So it's a really great opportunity to create positive social relationships. I think one of the big things that make it different is, I think it's, there is a power of me saying, yeah, I struggle with my mental health as well, and I was a young carer for my dad. But I think there's something so powerful about a professional footballer doing it, and someone they idolise. So we work with a lot of professional footballers that come to the group, and some of them will talk about their mental health with the players, and it will be the first time those professionals have shared their experiences with sort of fans. Some of them have done it in the public eye before. So these are some of the professionals. This guy here plays for Bristol City. He's their striker. He actually comes to the group yesterday. So his brother struggles with psychosis. So for a lot of our players to hear someone who's played in the Premier League talk openly about how he supported his brother with psychosis, it's mind-blowing for a lot of our players. We've got a freestyler down there. We've got, can't see it on the right, and we've had like a YouTuber come. Most of them are predominantly footballers, and there's something so special, I think, about them coming. So they'll come, join the session, play with the lads, and then afterwards we'll do a Q&A, and I think that is an opportunity for us to sort of ask the fun questions like, oh, who's the best team you played against, who's your favourite player you played against, and all that, but then ask some of the difficult ones like, how do you deal with rejection in football? And they get, I suppose, like why podcasts are quite interesting with football, you get those behind the scenes bits. I think that's why we have these quite open conversations. And I think, so last week we had a player come and we all were in the changing room, and he was talking about how he'd been at a professional club for 10 years and that he'd been released, and that really affected his mental health and well-being, but just made him feel really sad, and he talked openly how he cried. And if I would have looked at Jacob sort of 7 years ago, thinking, oh, you're going to be in a changing room with 25 lads talking about how we cry and show our emotions, you know, I just don't think we would have been there. And I think for a lot of the guys in the group, it's about unpicking some of those unhelpful things we picked up as men and boys from our other generations, and sort of saying, actually, this is how we're doing it, and sort of role modelling positive masculinity. So yeah, the group now is, we get about 30 to 40 people turn up every week. It's the largest in the country. When I set up, because I suppose my background is working in NHS mental health, I wanted it to be as easy as possible for people referring. So there's no referral forms, which is great. And for the people turning up, everything's free. So they don't have to pay at all. If they've got no football boots, we'll give them football boots. All our football boots are donated by professional footballers. We'll give them kit, that's all donated. We have like a drink sponsor, so we have like things like they'll give us sports drinks every so often. And I want it to just feel like literally there's nothing that can stop them going. So financially they can come, and there's no sort of barriers in the way of that. I think that shared experience is so important. Like, as a professional, you know, in early intervention in psychosis, they're with us for 3 years, and we try and do a lot of stuff with their mental health and all that other stuff. But realistically, things that we didn't do is create those social networks and relationships. So we had a guy who was with our service who was very difficult, didn't engage in traditional services like medication or talking therapy. He held some staff hostage for like a couple of times, was always calling the police, and really what he needed was just the same as when I'm struggling with my mental health, I'll talk to my friends or my family. He didn't have that. So him coming to the group, then he got to meet people, have friendships, and now instead of calling the crisis team or anything like that, he'll go and meet with his friends, and those social connections of then, loads of these will go out to the cinema together, they'll go out, some of them have gone on holiday together, and I think there's something about, like one guy come and he said, I'm really embarrassed, I was struggling with my psychosis, I shaved my eyebrows off and everyone's going to laugh at me. He came and he showed one of the players and he was like, oh my god, I did that at the same time when we did. He pulled his hand up, he had his eyebrows gone, and there's something about that of just completely normalising. I think for a lot of the guys coming, they've been around that old sort of mental health framework where there's something wrong with you, and we are massively about changing that narrative around you are better off for having your experiences. I know from my experiences with depression, I'm a better husband, a better dad, I'm more kinder, compassionate, caring. I understand my own mental well-being better now because of my experiences, and so it's our job to sort of instill that with our players really. So this is one of the other things we do is trips. So one of our early trips was this one. We had two, so we've got a couple of ambassadors that play football, so two of our ambassadors were playing against each other in Birmingham, so we took a group load of players up to Birmingham to watch the game. This was the top left, actually managed to get some free tickets to go and watch England, so we took a coach load. Jason was one of the guys that come, coach load of players to Wembley to watch a game, and I think there's something about like getting free stuff that you feel special, or like going, look, you're getting this because of your experiences, not because they pity you or because they think, oh, we're giving you them because you're mental health. It's because they treasure your experiences coming to this, and they see it as like I'm like they're sort of like a VIP because of their experiences. I won't lie, that coach trip was absolute murder as a staff member. there was we had definite smoking at the back of the coach. The coach broke down halfway because someone thought the emergency exit was the toilet. I don't know how that works, but I think there's something about that friendship that is created, and I definitely see my role as not an NHS staff member at the group. I see it as a mentor, and I'm very open compared to maybe traditionally how mental health staff were before. They know a lot about me and my family. I'm very open about that, and that creates that sort of friendship. And I think it's a testament to the group, really. We never say to people you can't come, however unwell you are. And we've had people that have come on the Thursday and they've been talking about a mental health act on the Friday. But I think we want people to feel like they can come no matter where they are in their recovery. If that's new to their recovery, so yesterday we had 2 lads come, and they were on section at Callington Road, and I know the traditional old-fashioned views would be where's the risk and all that, but I think if they can show how amazing that they can come to those sort of things, it shows actually how powerful it is. And what you don't see in the photos is all their families. So we have a lot of contact with their mums, their dads, with their siblings, and they've said actually from coming to these groups, it's been so impactful to their own sort of recovery. And I think, the main thing is it's that creating those connections. And I think a lot of them love it because they get treated and spoiled. And that sort of positive love that we give them, a lot of these lads have not had that someone will come up to them and go, look, here's some free stuff, here's some, this footballer wants to chat to you and really appreciates you spending that time with them. That's a little bit about the project. We've been running now for 4 years. I think what made the project sort of grow in the last sort of year, the pandemic for us was a game changer. So when football stopped, we then went online and we did a weekly football group where we had a footballer talk about their experiences. It planned to be a 2-week thing. We ended up doing, I think, 20 sessions. So the good thing was we could then chat to players, professional players in London that can't come to Bristol. So we spoke to Tony Adams, Millie Bright, loads of other players, and then went on to comedians. We did stand-up comedy nights with comedians that would share their experiences. I think we're big believers of changing that narrative where actually because of your difficulties, whatever they are, you're a better person for it. And that's a little bit about the project. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jacob. But also, just as a quick aside, so Jacob and I play in a football group on a Tuesday night, and I can definitely say that the ethos that they have generated in that group has been carried over and fostered into this group. It's just a group of men that play football, and it's really noticeable, I think, and I think it's interesting that it stands out because it's noticeable, and it's everyone that you speak to that when we just meet up and have a kickabout, it's such a nice group, and it feels really safe, and the connections are amazing, so it's amazing work. Thank you. Darren and Lee.
Yes, we're going to stay seated, I want to say well done to both of you guys and your organisations, because using a positive activity as a vehicle is so powerful. Obviously we believe in that, which we'll hear about shortly, but just very impressed, and and to the 2 gentlemen as well, very inspired by your stories, and man, really love what you've done and what you're doing. Hopefully you can kind of get a bit of the aesthetic and vibe of what we're about. But essentially, my name is Darren Alexander, Managing Director of Aspiration Creation Elevation. Essentially, we try to empower disadvantaged people to overcome barriers, preventing them from reaching their potential in life. This is my colleague Lee McKenna, and today we're going to tell you a little bit about what we do, and hopefully the video is going to be a kind of more hard-hitting way to do that, but we'll try to do that between what we present, and hopefully some questions after can hopefully shed more light on that as well. So, obviously in the video you might have got the sense that we work with a range of young people, young boys, young men, women, girls, and essentially to be be honest, most of our attendees are boys and young men, to be honest, and essentially those individuals are coming from backgrounds where they have barriers of racial and socio-economic disadvantage. Also, more time, like a lack of role models as well. So what we try and do is try and, I guess, give them a safe space where they can really do something positive, and through our kind of ethos of using like music and creativity alongside role model guidance and inspirational experiences, we can really transform young people's lives. Our provisions are delivered by creative guidance mentors who essentially have such kind of skills and assets as relevant life experience, a genuine duty of care, and inspirational leadership qualities. And for us, it's very important that we have the right people working on the ground, because the relationship with the young people is where the real magic happens, is where the real change is manifested, and it's about the quality of that engagement and the quality of the connections that our kind of trusted adults have with young people. So our recruitment process is rather, rigorous, to say one of a better word, but essentially it is one which does produce really, really good results for young people. Essentially, we are trying to achieve an impact for young people where they have a better sense of themselves and a better sense of their position in the wider world. Like a lot of young people that we do engage, they're known to or on the fringes of, being involved in the criminal justice system, coming from communities where historically there's been a lack of investment and a kind of stereotypes and generally not really feeling like they have an equal place in the society that we live in. So it's very important for us that what we do, it helps young people to broaden their horizons, to look further and wider beyond what they see in their everyday, and give them that real boost in confidence, that real positive interaction, that opportunity to be in a safe social space where they can really just find out who they are and what they want to be and what they want to do, and that has really resulted in many young people over the years who, we're proud to say have really gone on leaps and bounds. Some have gone on to university, some have started their own businesses, many have gone on to be like successful artists and musicians in their own right. We had a young person last year be accepted to the Bristol in London, which is a really big thing for him. And generally, we've tried to empower young people within the organisation as well to become young leaders, to join our team and to become young peer mentors and staff members themselves over time. And we've even had a young person become a board member and is currently supporting us to lead the organisation as well. So we're very proud of what we're doing. We feel like we have a good model, and again, like these guys using like a vehicle, a positive engagement vehicle to really, give your people that space to let everything go, to just be themselves, and to engage in what we really see as a key intervention, which is around being guided and supported by someone who understands them and has a similar background. So in context of today, some considerable factors I wanted to mention that we have identified as an organisation, which may not be new to anyone, but I just wanted to mention anyway, because it's important to recognise some of the key things which we feel like young people that we are trying to reach, that they face in their everyday lives. And as I said before, it's very much about barriers around race and identity and socio-economic background or class. Also, just stereotypes that go along with that are really damaging to the young people that we see. They really believe that, that they can't amount to much. I know it's like a cliche that people say, can't amount to much, but generally you see it on them, they wear it on their shoulders. And it is very damaging. And myself and Lee are both Bristol born and bred and have grown up in the inner city, and have been through that journey of feeling that way and finding our own path to overcome that and to want to really make a change for more young people coming through. Also, considerable factors include historic family breakdown. Again, just something which, obviously we're trying to do what we can, but you know, when young people are coming from a place where their home lives are so disruptive and so challenging, you know, we are fighting fires most of the time, but an important part of our organisation is to be in influence spaces and to be having conversations with those who are in a position of power, for want of a better word, and try to really make a case for more holistic support and more things to be done in a wider context than just youth provision on the ground. As mentioned, lack of positive role models, also safety and a sense of belonging, really important. Young people that we engage often are making poor choices because it makes them feel safer, and it makes them feel like they have a sense of control in what they're doing in their lives, and essentially that's something which we all want. And if you're growing up as a young person who's obviously still developing, still growing, it's harder to have that rationale, and you are more easily swayed down negative paths. Another important one, social status and self-worth, again goes hand in hand with like making choices and wanting to feel safe. Essentially, you know, it's very much a thing where young males especially feel like they need to be seen a certain way by others, by their peers, and that is often an image of strength and an image of being capable and being worthy. So again, that can perpetuate really poor choices and can be very damaging. Obviously, as we all know, mental health, often really wrongly perceived, misdiagnosed, especially amongst black men and black boys. You know, again, just has profound impact on their journey, and can really be something which, you know, from the get-go, just puts up major barriers and really puts them down the wrong path. And finally, more recently, is technology. Again, not new to anyone, I'm sure, but the way that technology is developing and growing and changing, young people are obviously really tapped into that and engage with that in a way that, you know, I'll be honest, like myself and a lot of adults that I know don't engage with technology, and therefore it's a space where things are happening kind of under the radar, which again could be something which can get out of control and can easily lead to really damaging consequences. But yeah, not trying to be too negative, like I said before, you know, we're very proud of what we do, and great to see so many great other organizations in the room and sat next to me as well doing their thing, and it does make a big difference, and collectively and through having influence positions we can make a really wide and profound impact. But enough from me, I'm going to hand over to Lee, who's going to tell us a bit more about actually what ACE does in our approaches on the ground.
So yeah, I'm just going to speak about our actual pragmatic approach when it comes to youth working. You'll be aware these young people don't exist in the vacuum of our youth centres. They live in communities where real problems are there. There's real pressures, money is an issue, offending is an issue. A lot of behaviour is normalised around them, and we are but one small piece that's trying to work towards changing their trajectories and outcomes. We work, therefore, with young people in different settings. Some in open access, they're welcome to come into our youth centres. Some we do one-to-one after we've targeted them with our open access. We know what type of movements they're going to need to improve their lives, in our opinion. And some of them will be targeted young people or targeted groups that have been assigned to us from statutory bodies such as Safer Options, Bristol City Council, and whatnot. We take the holistic approach that we are part of the community we work in. So one of the main benefits is we understand the community we work in very, very well. And we know the pressures and problems that they're liable to face. So in order to best help young people navigate this, we use very clear safeguarding boundaries. Young people will know which aspects of offending that they can comfortably talk to us about, which aspects that are just going to be off the table, and which aspects they can dance around the topic of without directly incriminating themselves. And I genuinely think that is vital. We want people to change their lives. We have to actually understand what is their life like at the moment, what is their understanding of what their life is like at the moment. We have the non-judgmental approach. Almost everything can be on the table. If you want to speak about offending you've done, that's absolutely fine. If you want to speak about offending that's done to you, how it feels, that's fine. Drug misuse, personal situations, whatever is important to any young person at that given time is actually what's preventing them from moving forward. Is they are aware of where they have their own blockages. Then once we've got them comfortable to talk and they've opened up and we've started discussing it, part of our approach is tied into this wider conversation of masculinity, not being given the tools to recognize your own emotion, your own experience, where you are, what's happening with you. So we actively try to ask questions that's going to help people to question their feelings, their emotion, their experience, what is normal, how do they think normal would look for someone else. To realize that they live in a small bubble in a wider world can really help to liberate their minds of some of the structures that they find themselves trapped in. We believe in experiential experience, so literally taking them out of their comfort zone to any other comfort zone where you could just feel the difference in energy. A lot of the times, it's not just the things we've been through, it's the spaces that we inhibit that create pressures for us. So a young person who's possibly never been to the beach before swimming, you see them splashing around like a small child all over again. This isn't an experience they knew they would have valued, but if we can widen their experiences, they can realize the benefit of engaging with the wider world. We use role modeling. And when we talk about role modeling, we mean it in two ways. Adult to adult role modeling, how we engage in our behaviors. It's okay to have a dispute or a disagreement, but how are we going to resolve this? Where does the respect land afterwards? How do we all feel about this? And then also peer-to-peer, but adult to young person role modeling, to let them know what expectations they should and could have in their relationships with adults. A lot of us grow up in communities whereby we don't have trusted peer relationships, where we can't always trust our elders to be communicating what's in our best interest. And as a result of this, we want to reimpose that normality of older people should really be out here looking out for you. And if you don't feel that that's the case, then something's probably up. And finally, we bring this all together by utilizing the trusted adult relationships that we create with these young people to help them explore their issues. So for some people, it's going to be a sense of belonging. We consider that a community issue. For a lot of young people, they've got conflict and they don't know how to navigate. They can't unilaterally stop this conflict, but nonetheless, we want to give them some strategies, advice for minimizing it and definitely the effects this conflict is going to have on their life. And also questions such as, how are you? What's going on with you? What have you enjoyed this week? What have you struggled with this week? As part of our attempts to help young people to be aware of their own mental health. Often we can decide, we feel like someone's suffering from poor mental health, but it's the individual who we're attempting to reach that has to identify a problem for a change to be made. So yeah, that's our ACE approach. As you can see, it is intended to be quite a holistic approach and just really take into consideration the context in which we and young people live and work. But as a result of employing this approach, we do have very successful relationships with our young people, and often when we do see them in the community, we're not that nerdy youth worker they're trying to avoid. They're happy to engage with us and talk to us and give us a shot. Thank you.